From the Times and the Sunday Times, this is The Story. I'm Manveen Rana. At a rally in Atlanta, a theatre full of people are cheering and chanting as one man, dressed in a crisp blue shirt, takes to the stage.
Oh, Atlanta!
Senator Jon Ossoff, one of the rising stars of the Democrat Party, is addressing the crowd. He launches into a speech criticizing President Trump's foreign policy, his tariffs, his treatment of the military, and then this.
The president sleeps through his meetings. He golfs and trades stocks. See, he doesn't want to do the job. He wants to build his ballroom and travel with Natalie on their apparently defenseless flying palace gifted by the Emir of Qatar.
The crowd erupts. The center stage theatre in Atlanta is electrified. And soon, so is the rest of the American political world. And all because of 3 words: travel with Natalie.
That one sentence really went off like a lightning bolt in Washington, D.C., because he didn't even have to use Natalie Harp's full name for every politico in the city to know exactly who he was talking about. He was referring to Natalie Harp, President Trump's executive assistant, who is constantly by his side.
Philip Wegmann is a White House reporter for our sister paper, The Wall Street Journal. From the moment that speech in Atlanta landed, it became the talk of the town in Washington, D.C.
One of the things that struck me was that here you had an obscure aide, a 35-year-old young woman, who, after that attack from Ossoff, you had the entire MAGA coalition rallying to her defense. And that tells you something about the power and influence that she wields in Washington, D.C.
So who is Natalie Harp? How did she become so close to the President of the United States of America? And what does her position tell us about what's happening behind the scenes of the Trump White House? The story today: why America is talking about Natalie Harp. This is a remarkable story because up until that speech, a lot of people wouldn't have heard of Natalie Harp at all. How big has this become?
It certainly has frustrated the White House. This is not something that they wanted to talk about. And the way that the aside that Ossoff gave during that rally hit this administration and Republicans generally was they believed that the senator was insinuating that this young woman was involved in some type of romantic relationship with the president. You know, a lot of my sources, the other reporters on the story, talked to numerous other sources as well, and we did not pick up anything approaching a romantic relationship. But certainly, anytime the first family is involved, administrations get defensive. Not just this one, but this one in particular, right? And so in this case, I think that what you saw from a lot of folks on the right is they believed that this Democratic rising star was being sexist. And so they reacted to what they saw as hypocrisy, and they pushed back pretty strongly. I think that the pushback from Republicans has given this story another life, and it has elevated this in the consciousness of the average American voter.
The White House obviously has been out strenuously denying any kind of a relationship between Natalie Harp and Donald Trump, and it seems like half of the MAGA universe has also come out to say the same. And yet this is a story that does seem to be punching through. Why has it cut through to the public? Why does this story seem to matter in a way that so many other scandals around Donald Trump come and go?
I think there's intrigue. In Natalie Harp, you have a young woman who very seldom does any press. In fact, when we reached out and requested an interview, the White House did not make her available. And so I think the intrigue into who is this person who the president relies upon. What she does as an executive assistant is she translates the president's remarks into Truth Social posts. She is known as the human printer because she is very quick to print out articles and information for the president. We've seen different video snippets here and there, photos where Natalie is very much omnipresent and at the president's side.
She is sitting not outside the Oval Office, but in the Oval Office.
The New York Times with new reporting on video they've seen of Harp at Trump's golf course in Scotland, sprinting, the Times reports, great distances to keep up with Trump's golf cart.
She is with him so much of the day during those meetings, and she is talking to him throughout the evening about social media posts.
And while this is someone in sort of a junior role, she serves as the president's executive assistant, meaning that she is a gatekeeper and a conduit to him. We had sources who told us that having the president's cell phone is pretty important. You can call up the leader of the free world, but that Natalie Harp's contact information was even more valuable because she is the one who makes certain that if you are an outside interest group or a lawmaker, her access is, unmatched. Sources were telling us that the quickest way to get something on the Resolute desk was to send it to Natalie Harp.
This is a woman who does seem to have an awful lot of influence in the White House. She's the one, as you say, who people want to get on the phone because that's how things are placed in front of Donald Trump, in front of the leader of the free world. She's also the one who types up his Truth Social posts, so presumably she's the one who likes to overcapitalize. And yet at the heart of that is a woman who most people hadn't really heard of until recently. So, as you say, that's where the intrigue comes. So who is Natalie Harp? What do we know about her?
Natalie Harp is particularly interesting because in this administration, she sees herself as working directly for the President of the United States and answering to no one else. In this administration, senior staff, they all believe that they answer to the head of this or that department and ultimately White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. But Natalie Harp sees her role as working directly for the President. She does not tell him no. Anything that he asks for, she delivers. And her backstory here is really informative. Her origin story is that she had a very aggressive form of cancer and was in rather dire straits. She credits President Trump's right to try policy from the first administration, which allows individuals to use drugs for non-FDA approved uses as saving her life.
I'm living with cancer. I'm not dying from it anymore, which is really a miracle. I mean, when I was in a wheelchair, I was in so much pain, and it's like now I'm living a quality of life that I never thought I'd be able to have.
And so here you have someone who agreed with the president ideologically, and then someone who literally believes, and she has said this before, praised him in public, that she owes him her life.
Mr. President, I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for you. The Democrats love to talk about healthcare being a human right. But a right to what? They didn't give me the right to try experimental treatments, Mr. President. You did. And without you, I'd have died waiting for them to be approved.
That's a kind of dedication that we don't just not see in politics day to day. That's a type of dedication that I don't think you run across really at all in the modern workforce. So this is someone who absolutely isn't just dedicated to their job. She lives and breathes it.
Wow. And how does that bring her into politics?
So before joining the administration, Natalie had worked at a right-wing news network called One America News. She came to the administration's attention through her daily work, but also it was this speech that she gave where the president actually invites her on stage to tout the right to try policy.
Good evening. I'm Natalie Harp, a formerly forgotten American from California.
And then later she's invited to speak at the Republican National Convention.
Without Donald Trump as our patient advocate for the past 4 years, well, the opioid epidemic would have stolen even more lives from even more families. Kidney patients would have no future except dying on wait lists.
She's brought into the fold after that. And in addition to being the face of this policy, she is someone who sticks with the president even after January 6th in 2020. She stays with him throughout his time in exile before he returns to power. So she has demonstrated her loyalty.
Yeah. And you mentioned that her time as a presenter on a right-wing network, OAN, for people who haven't come across it, just tell us a bit about her show. Is it true that she would end every program either with a quote from the Bible or a quote from Donald Trump?
I'm not certain if it was every show, but she certainly liked to quote both scripture and the president. And I think that if we look back to how this administration was staffed initially, they wanted to avoid what they saw as mistakes from the first Trump administration, where they brought in a bunch of general Republican staff who weren't necessarily MAGA diehards. They wanted to bring in people who were loyal not just to the president, but also to his mission. And Natalie Harp is the poster child for that. She is entirely bought on when it comes to MAGA conservatism, and then she is bought on when it comes to the president himself. And so that's why I think that she was given this key role. Not only does the president trust her intrinsically, but there's no doubt that she herself is, on board with the mission.
Phil, you've been telling us about Natalie Harp, a White House staffer with pretty unique access to President Trump, a person who is key in this administration, even though she doesn't have very much of a political background, somebody other White House staffers are often jealous of. What does her role in the White House, how does it alter the way Donald Trump sees and interacts with the world? Does it actually matter? Does she contribute to what some would describe as the dysfunction of this White House?
So the president consumes a tremendous amount of media. He is reading numerous newspapers every single morning. He constantly has cable television on. If there is a segment that he's not going to watch live, he'll have it clipped and watch it later.
Wow.
The man is scrolling Twitter and True Social constantly, right? But even then, you can only react to what you see. And Natalie Harp, she is kind of the eyes and ears for him personally, in that if a Republican wants the president to get eyes on something, they'll first send it to Natalie. She's by his side constantly, not just outside of the Oval Office where she sits, but she travels with the president. She's been in the Situation Room with him as well. She has tremendous access. And then she also has, used her job to make accessible to the president a tremendous amount of different information. And so there have been some criticism of her previously that she's passed along some controversial things. For instance, it was Natalie Harp who actually posted the image that caused quite a kerfuffle earlier this year of President Trump as a Christ-like figure. It was an AI image. And, our sources say that went through Natalie Harp. Others, like Bill Pulte, first suggested that image to the president, but she's the one who made certain that he saw it.
And for a woman who sees him as her savior, in a way that would make sense, she's sometimes viewed as a slight embarrassment to the White House. I mean, there was a story about a time she climbed into the boot of a car to avoid being parted from Donald Trump's side. I mean, tell us about that.
This goes back to her time as a staffer to Donald Trump when he was out of office. And this story in particular that has gotten a lot of public attention is that the president was headed to a courthouse, I believe, for one of his hearings. There wasn't enough room in one of the cars, and Natalie Harp, she got into an argument with other staffers when she was trying to find a seat. A seat was not made available, but what did she do? Well, she crawled into the trunk of an SUV and made the trip that way. That's something that's going to raise a lot of eyebrows. It's unusual. It's not something that staffers who take themselves very seriously would do. But Natalie, she takes the job more seriously than herself, and she was ready to go to any lengths to deliver to the president. You have to wonder where these stories are coming from, particularly the ones that paint Natalie in an unflattering light. This one, or the stories about the personal correspondence that Melania Trump discovered from Natalie to the president.
Letters published in full for the first time show staffer Natalie Harp writing to the president in 2023, and I'm quoting now, "You are all that matters to me," end quote. And also this, "I don't want to ever let you down," end quote.
Those are stories that don't get out into the public view unless there's someone inside of the administration that finds the behavior objectionable. I think that the fact that we know these colorful anecdotes reflects that there are some in this administration who aren't just jealous of Natalie's access, they'd also like to see her pushed back onto the sidelines.
You mentioned the correspondence. Just explain to our listeners what we've learnt from some of those letters, which have been made public now.
These letters, they can be read, like you mentioned a second ago, online now at this point.
Dear Mr. President, I've learned so much about myself on this trip. For the first time in I don't know how long, you've forced me to unplug.
It is unclear sort of their genesis to public light, but they reflect a Aide who is adoring.
I miss the days when you used to call during my talk show days. And we talk about everything and nothing. I want to get back to that synergy. We shouldn't have to talk about work all the time. I wish I could hear every conversation. Because that's when you're having a good time, getting away from it all. At least for a few moments.
And who, sees the president very much as a father figure.
Thank you for always being there for me. I'll never forget when you made that promise to me after losing my dad. And I know how happy he is right now that I did get to go to Scotland and Ireland, as he always wanted for me. To modify a classic, I could not have parted with you to anyone less worthy. And I will add, it is I who is unworthy.
That's not something that I think a lot of us have ever communicated to a work supervisor.
No.
But it reflects, again, Natalie's thoughts here. Like, this is someone who, in her heart of hearts, she truly believes that the president saved her life. And so she's going to do absolutely everything that is required of her.
That is the fear you see, because I never want to bring you anything but joy. I need to reunite my past self with my current into a better version who will make you proud. And please, when I fail, will you tell me? You have the absolute right to cuss me out, if need be, when I deserve it, because no one knows or cares about me more.
Those letters, they are a bit awkward. Outside of context that can only be known to her and the president, they do seem at times a bit cringeworthy.
They do also read like he has told her that she's being embarrassing, that she's acting too much like a fanatic almost, and she seems to be apologizing for that a lot.
I'm sorry. I thought I was the only one left behind last night. Since I was alone in the van outside customs without my passport, I panicked and should have just called Secret Service instead of you. I'm also sorry if I was an embarrassment walking the course in Scotland. If there was anything else I've done to cause you trouble, please forgive me. I want things to always be right between us.
I imagine that someday the president and perhaps Natalie will shed more light on this dynamic. But thus far, the initial turn of the screw here has been a White House that is in complete defense of this aide. And that reflects something that we were told again and again, which is, in the eyes of the president, Natalie Harp is untouchable.
And in terms of that closeness between them, there were rumours earlier this year when he had to be rushed off a plane that was taking off in Turkey, and he went on a decoy flight, effectively.
The Washington Post is reporting that after boarding Air Force One, the president was put on a catering truck to be moved to a smaller plane. The secret mission was in part to evade a credible Iranian assassination threat, leaving his primary Air Force One to act as an unwitting decoy.
There were rumours that she was one of the few people who joined him.
That's right. And, if you talk to some White House staff, they'll dismiss this, saying, of course, the president is going to be bringing an executive assistant with him. This is someone who interacts with the outside world and with the rest of the administration staff on his behalf. It makes sense. Others, I think, were a bit jealous that Natalie was able to sneak off of that flight while others were left behind, essentially as decoys.
I mean, that must have placed a few noses out of joint in the White House for the people who were left on the flight that might have been blown up.
Certainly.
Phil, how are the Democrats playing this? It started with one speech, one tiny line in one speech that really caught fire. How are they using this as a political attack?
Democrats are saying, wait a minute. We're watching this administration clutch its pearls over allegedly sexist attacks. They're rolling their eyes. They're saying that this is too cute by half from this White House, given the arguments that Donald Trump has made previously. And so this is an acknowledgement. I think there have been a handful of Democratic representatives who have said this is the new politics. This is the type of innuendo and argument that Donald Trump made mainstream. Well, what's good for the Democratic goose must be good for the GOP gander, and they're ready to give as good as they've gotten previously.
And is there a sense that it's actually quite a strong attack line for them? Is it having an effect across the public?
Will this change a single vote? I really highly doubt that it will, but it definitely gets under the president's skin. And, Democrats, they've suffered all of the nicknames that the president has given them.
I call him Crooked Joe and Sleepy Joe. Crazy Bernie, Crying Chuck Schumer, Nervous Nancy. And this guy Steyer, we call him Impeachment Tom. And I said, he's a dumb guy. I said, wait a minute, he's a Democrat. That's how I got the name. You take the
They've, suffered through a lot of insults previously. And so here they see an opportunity to needle him back. The thing that I hear most from Democratic voters is that they are frustrated that no one takes the fight to the president in the way that he has done to his political enemies for years. And so there's not a lot of qualms on the left about what Ossoff said and did. Instead, I think the general rank and file Democratic base voter, they're glad that someone has punched back the president in his own style.
And how much is it affecting Donald Trump? We've seen the White House, they do seem to be quite rattled.
Yeah, the president has addressed this.
Yesterday, John Ossoff said you'd be rather travel with your aide, Natalie Harp, and build the ballroom than do your job as president. What is your response to John Ossoff?
You mean Pee Wee Herman? Pee Wee Herman lookalike? No, I would much rather do other things. We're building a great facility here. We're fixing a White House that hasn't been taken care of.
Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller has addressed this.
Natalie is one of the most incredible, extraordinary people I've ever had the privilege of knowing and working with. The attempts to defame and to assail her are among the most vile things I've seen in American politics.
I don't think it's going to be a distraction from their core mission. Over the weekend, Natalie Harp was seen joining the president on his trip to South Carolina, joining the president during his time at the IndyCar race here in Washington, D.C. There haven't been any changes made as of yet that we've picked up on, but this administration, I think that they see this as a distraction from the other things that they're trying to do. This certainly isn't the story that they'd like to be engaged with.
As you say, Natalie Harp does seem to be remaining a key part of this administration. She's still there. She's still by his side. Apart from the attacks from the Democrats, the huge political debate that has erupted around this, the headlines, the social media clips, Is there something more to this story? I mean, will it tell us, do you think it'll tell historians in years to come, something about the way this Trump administration worked?
The president demands total loyalty, and sometimes he gets it, and sometimes he gets an approximation. With Natalie Harp, he gets exactly what he wants. He has an aide who is completely and totally dedicated to him, not to other senior staff in the administration, not to their own ambitions, but instead he's focused entirely on the president himself. That's what he wants, and that's what he gets out of this relationship.
That was Philip Wegmann, White House reporter at the Wall Street Journal. The producers today were Olivia Case and Jennifer Kennedy. The executive producer was Edward Drummond. Sound design was by Dave Creasy, and theme composition was by Maula Seto. If you can, do leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to get in touch, do drop us a line to thestory@thetimes.com. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.